Welcome. It is no accident that you have found your way to the Release the Genie podcast. What would you do with 3 wishes? And what if you discovered that you are in fact that very genie that could grant them? Well, join us now as we discover who our next genie is as we listen in and learn the stories of triumph, inspiration, and passion with some very special guests. And now, without further delay, your host of the Release the Genie podcast, Mr. Paul Rogers.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in from. We have got a fantastic genie today. And also I'd like to say today that this is the invasion of the Brits. So
Great.
We left our flags waving, but the believers, we've got the Union Jack somewhere close. He is a talented voiceover artist. I think this is the first time I've had a voiceover artist on the show, so I'm very excited. He really has his roots in the drama, and we had a little chat before the show of effectively a walk down memory lane. But you know, he does scripts, commercials, narrating, audio books, and documentaries. So I'm going to hand it over to the lovely Steve Newman. How are you doing,
Thanks
Steve?
so much, Paul. Yeah, I'm very well indeed. Thank you, Paul.
Right.
And it's if I can sort of give you that sort of breeze of Britishness just for just for the next few. But I'm sure we miss you, or someone. I'm sure someone does. In fact, the Queen has told me.
Well, you know,
where is that, Paul?
Where is he? You know, he was meant to pop round for tea the other week, and he was quite rude. He didn't come, so so we could go off with his head if we wanted to.
So no knighthood. Yeah.
No.
No knighthood.
It's in the post, you know. So, so I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, which kind of set the scene.
Yeah, sure. Well, I start off drama. I think drama is musicals is where it started from school, where I was sort of introduced via the sort of productions we did at school, and realised that I had a talent. Then I joined a sort of drama group and did various musicals. I talked about. I played Curly in Oklahoma. As a very young Curly, totally miscast, but I could reach the notes, so that's kind of okay. And then the Mikado, and the stuff you used to do at school as well, especially Gilbert and Sullivan. So after spending a miserable 3.5-4 years in the civil service, I decided that I've got to do something. And so because my family weren't theatrical at all, it only dawned on me much later on that perhaps you could actually become a professional actor or something. So I went to Guildford in Surrey, Guildford School of Drama, because the irony at the time I was on a musical theatre course, and the irony at the time was that Connie, she used to take the calls for the drama school, but she had a dreadful lisp. So you can imagine, actually sort of inquiring, is this the Guildford School? She'd be going, yes, it is the Guildford School of Speech and Drama. It's kind of, and I'm sure it put most people off, but it was a very good school, actually. So I left basically with the intention of doing what I did for the next 14 years, which was stage work mainly, musicals, and a bit of Shakespeare, a bit of, but not really serious drama. It was mainly the bright and fluffy stuff, so I could sing, and, that was the reason for that. And was fortunate enough to spend some time in the West End. Oh. I did Me and My Girl for about 15 months. Wow. That was fun. So there is a glamour. I mean, about especially when you hit the West End.
Yeah.
What shocked me though, which I'm sure a lot of people don't realise, is that for a start, the cast are rarely all there, and I don't mean mentally, although that probably applies as well. But in other words, there's someone always sick. there's always someone off, or and with a long running show, there's holidays as well. So you have what they call swing boys and swing girls, and they're the people that basically take the parts of the people that are off. So the, you know, chorus members and stuff like that. And they were always working, you know. So in other words, there was rarely a time where the whole cast was actually on stage, the original cast on stage together. That was one thing. And the other thing that amazed me was that I imagined in my mind, you know, being in the West End for the first time, that, you know, after the curtain closes, everyone sort of swans off to clubs, cocktail bars, you know what I mean? Oh, wonderful clink of glasses, you know what I mean? Oh, darling, you know, that sort of stuff. And then, so to my shock and horror, you know, these sort of curtains closed, suddenly everyone's woof, literally running to their dressing rooms, running out the exit, you know, and all, you know, heading home basically. So that was really quite earth-shattering.
Yeah, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm excited by that or not. I mean,
I know, isn't it weird?
Yeah.
So people are dying, you know, after that's it, you know, boomf, finish, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing because they go from like hyper energy and to like almost a standstill. So that's quite amazing.
Yeah.
We had a little chat before the show, and I asked, you know, I like to ask you, you know, who is one of your favorite voices? I know you've got many, but you know, who was one of your people you aspired to?
So I love as I was saying to you before, I love the theatrical, I suppose. I'm still drawn to that sort of thing, the dramatic. So whether it be, I say, your Richard Burton's, Derek Jacobi's, Simon Callow's, the OTT people, Richard Harris's, and people that shout a lot, Brian Blessed, who shouts all the time. And as we were saying before, he's only got two voices. One's very loud and one's slightly less loud. You know what I mean? And that's Brian Blessed, isn't it? But I like that. I'm drawn to those kind of people, you know. I remember going to church and when I was young, and every now and then you had a Welsh speaker or something, you know what I mean? And so it may have been sort of, you know, heaven and hell and all that, whatever it was. But I was absolutely, you know, wrapped up in that sort of, love that theatricality about it all, you know? Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, and I wonder if you could sort of just very quickly give us a little, you know, example, maybe a short narration of this show, just a couple of sentences. That would be great. In one of your favorite voices.
Well, I'll probably do something in the north, you know, up north, and say how wonderful this marvelous presenter is, this Paul chap, who I've just met recently, and he's salt of the earth, quite frankly. He really is. Absolutely amazing guy. And I'd just like to pass on, he's well worth a listen. Well worth a listen.
That's magic. Thank you very much. I kind of time zoned, which is wonderful. Thank you very much.
It's all Hovis.
Yeah, exactly. I even got the little tune and the boy with the bike going up there. Anyone's going to be like, what are these guys talking about? But Google it. You'll see what we're talking about. So I wonder if you could sort of give me one of your sort of release the genie, one of your aha moments.
My aha moments is, funnily enough, is very recently with the COVID, because after I'd sort of left, I kind of left drama, and I didn't want to leave drama. And the reason I left drama was because I started getting not stage fright, but the nerves were getting to me. And so in other words, I'd be thinking about the show all the time. So, you know, and sort of working out. Then you sort of go on stage, release all the, you know, whatever, the energy and everything like that. Huge relief afterwards. And then it'll start all over again the following morning. So, you know, and when that balance shifts to when it's more problem than it is pleasure.
Yeah, I mean,
and you know what I mean? Then you kind of have a decision to make, really.
Yeah, I totally agree, because when the balance starts to change, as you said, you know, and there's the fun element starts to drop down.
Yes, indeed.
the energy goes down with it, because as much as you try to pump yourself up, if
Yeah.
you don't actually got your heart in it, it's
Yes. Well, the awful thing was, it's a bit like, it's my heart kind of was in it, but suddenly, my nerves weren't, and that was the problem, really. In other words, I'd still probably be doing it now, but it just so happened, fortunately at the time, and I've always had this. I've been very, very lucky in this sense, in that there's been something bubbling underneath. So in this particular case, I was just doing the occasional tour, guided tour around London. And it just so happened that when I was thinking of leaving drama and theatre and stuff, that the company got bigger. And so I just had enough to survive. So I could leave sort of drama, and then for a time it was parallel, going along parallel. And then, but I just had enough to keep me going. And then as the company got bigger and bigger, I slowly, drifted away from drama and concentrated on tour guiding. So I did tour guiding for years. I'm talking about in London, principally. Yeah. But that satisfied a lot of things at the time, in the sense that you still had a performance element with a crowd in front of you, and also satisfied my sort of interest in history and London and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, it's really nice to hear that actually how many of your passions you didn't realize you had with connections and stuff, and how that then fills you up. And so I salute you for actually being brave enough to embrace the newness and move into that.
Yes it was kind of it was part necessity, but it took a long time to release what I thought I was, because I was seen in the eyes, of course, most people, still an actor. And so in other words, the tour guiding was by the by, that was earning some money. So I was still plagued with people asking me, auditioning, are you still auditioning, blah blah blah, you'd be great in this, you'd be good in that, and there was part of me that still believed it. So it took a long time actually for me to actually turn around and say, that's part of my life that has to be at least, put on the shelf for the moment. A great friend of mine helped tremendously. She's got great insight, and she said, well, if you see yourself as a performer as opposed to purely an actor, then suddenly spreads the kind of things that you can do within your frame of reference, so to speak. And that helped tremendously.
What a great advice that was. I mean, really, really good.
Yes.
No, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
So having heard your story of how you've had to sort of actually make some choices, has there been any sort of inspiring quote or mantra which has sort of stood out to you at all?
My big thing, and I think it happened with this sort of change as well during COVID, because what happened was, obviously I was getting fed up with touring around London, only because I started getting limited, more limited, in the sense of what I was doing. I was doing the same tours basically, day in, day out. So some of the joy had gone, and it just so happened, of course, this COVID was, as far as I was concerned, an opportunity to change. And so I basically did some creative stuff, tried to keep my mind, creative and all that kind of stuff. And so that's why I sort of decided to go back to drama in a way, through voiceovers, which is absolutely amazing. And I think what stays with me is the Ecclesiastes, as the Byrds later on, the band, quoted and lyricized, which is, to everything there is a purpose under heaven. And I've got it here actually, if I can sort of just can I actually sweep this across without am I in the way? Is something in the way? No, that's okay.
I'm hosting, so
sure. When it says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck, which is planted, time to kill, a time to heal, time to break down, time to build up, time to weep, a time to laugh, and a time to mourn, and a time to dance. And I think that's played a big part in my life. I think it is true. I think there are times, not even dictated by you, but something just changes, and it's a time to leave something and to do something else. So that's my.
That's beautiful.
Quotation.
To be honest, I love it. It's a fantastic quote. So thank you so much, because I think that's going to listen to that back and shut your eyes for the listeners, because that is really just amazing. So thank you so much for sharing.
Oh no, absolute pleasure. And what I love about it as well, sort of keep on about it, but is that it was supposedly written by King Solomon, and King Solomon, he had everything. And what's lacking in the world, in a sense, what's always been lacking in the world probably, is wisdom. And of course, he could have asked God, when God asked him what he wanted, I suppose there would have been temptation maybe to say another Ferrari, please, or you know what I mean, etc. Or I'll have 2,000 concubines.
And the numbers on the lottery would be fairly helpful as well.
Yes. and he asked for wisdom. And for someone who had everything, he didn't have that. And that was the best choice he could have made. So it also comes, so the Ecclesiastes also comes from that kind of place of, in his case, world weary wisdom in a way, because he also said everything is vanity, so you know what I mean. There's that sort of, but that comes from that place,
Yeah, I mean, it's not anti it, but it's kind of it's doing a challenge to actually. As you go through, but it's really, really good, and I think entirely appropriate for now. And isn't that amazing that stuff written that long ago still has impact today?
Yeah, absolutely right. So true. So true.
Thank you so much for sharing it with us. That has been a wow moment for me. That could have put in the aha moment, actually. So, I mean, you may have already touched on it, but is there a sort of a setback or some adversity which you've been able to get through?
The adversity really for me is anxiety, and I've been an anxiety sufferer for years, and I was for years and years and years and years. And so I was very angry inside, not outwardly, but it was only when I got married. I got married quite late, when I was about 1996, and I was 40 at the time, and my wife challenged me on it, and of course I'd been covering it for so long, this kind of like because a lot of anger, if it goes inwards, of course, is, as you know, frustration, whatever it is, comes out as depression, anxiety and stuff like that. So I went to therapy and had several therapists really over several years. So that helped me understand maybe where all this anxiety came from. Which I tried to battle single-handedly for so long, and but eventually I realised that some for all the therapy, if you're scarred, ultimately you do need sort of plastic surgery. You know what I mean? So in the sense of, the scar is still there. So for me,
you can't just stick a Band-Aid on it and say that's done.
Yeah, so you can understand, in other words, you can understand why you limp or whatever it is, but ultimately you still limp. So I turned to the wonderful magic of pills, which is actually obviously I was wary of and put off for years and years and years. It's a low dosage, but it's freed me to live a what you call a normal life, I suppose. Really.
Yeah, I mean. It's obviously a very, potentially a contentious subject, but I agree. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, anything that helps is exactly. Good, whether it actually comes from this or that. It doesn't really matter.
Sure.
And if it helps you get through and then give something like you do, I love your podcast.
That was my dog impersonation. Did you enjoy that?
You're ventriloquist as well, because I never saw your lips move. Yeah.
Just out the side of the mouth.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And so Tell me, what are you what are you working on now? Is there any sort of projects you've got on the go?
I'm just, I am pleased that I made that choice. I mean, that, you know, to be voiceover again, it means that I can go back. I didn't realize how rough my voice had got as a result of, you know, just speaking outside all the time. So I started, because I used to have voice lessons, that kind of stuff. And so on YouTube, of course, there are lots of kind of voice lessons. So I started sort of retraining my voice again to get to the more, you know, subtle ambiances of the voice and that kind of stuff. So that's been great. That's been fantastic. But what I love about it really is I've ended up like I did when I left drama school, because I'm auditioning. You know, this is, you know, so that's what I do most of the time. I audition, you know.
Wow.
And you get the job, you don't get the job, whatever, you know. So yeah, it's brilliant. I've got my little booth downstairs in the cellar.
Nice.
Which
Your man cave.
The man, yeah. You know, yes, I do a lot of crying. And but it's like a Punch and Judy booth. You know? That's what it's like. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Great.
Yeah, you know, it's such a. I just feel that there's a sort of a connection again with your energy, because I can really sense that energy coming up, radiating off you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, good.
Fantastic. Well, look, now we move to the second part of the show where I get to ask my great genie for 3 wishes. So are you ready today as today's genie?
Yes. Wishes wise.
I'm convinced.
So I've got 3 wishes.
Well, yes, and I get to ask you because you're the genie.
Oh, good.
I'm
Okay.
Aladdin. So
yeah, okay.
So my first wish is,
what
was the best advice you have ever received?
Probably the best advice I ever received was if you've got to go to the loo, go.
You know,
and I'm sorry, there's, of all the advice I think I've ever heard, there is nothing more important than that. You know what I mean? A number of times, you know, you've been sort of, you didn't go to the loo, you should have gone to the loo, and now you're going to suffer. You know, you're going to suffer. You just know that.
And to be honest, it's never what you think when the actor's out there. Well, everything's fine, but if they're right thinking, I've got to get through this because I want to go and have a pee.
Absolutely. Oh my word, it is disastrous. I'm sorry.
No. Do you know, I think it's going to go in my Hall of Fame of great advices. So
absolutely,
I'm very excited to ask for my next wish. Which
yes.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
In my particular case, it would be, I think, that the reality of where you want to get to is achievable, because basically there are basically where you want to get to, you'll probably find people like you. Is the best thing. So in other words, even if you see someone on the silver screen, if you know, you could be on the silver screen. You know, because the first thing you find out about, as you may know, you probably do, is that if you actually go onto a film set or you meet actors or whatever it is, you find, hey, you know, they're just like me, you know, with their problems, their joys, sorrows, families, you know, whatever it is. You know, so hopefully, obviously, you have to be realistic in assessing your own talent, but generally speaking, yeah, you know, it's pretty soon, in other words, you can look back and think, blimey, you know, I was like that, you know, and I was pointing to a student or, you know, with someone with less experience or whatever it is. But, you know, you're getting to these places, not realizing that they were the places you thought you could never get to when you first started, you know.
A journey, you know.
Exactly.
People are also very keen to get to the end, but actually, you know, the journey's kind of important. So
it is quite.
You miss that out. There's no destination. So.
No, but I'm not. I just qualify that with the sense that I've never been an ambitious person, but I think that had my parents who were sort of obviously your listenership won't quite get this maybe, but sort of working class, and they sort of knew their place, you know. And I think we were taught, me and my sister, you know, that you know your place, you know.
Don't get ideas above your station.
Don't get ideas above your station. And I think had that not been true, our minds would have sort of expanded immediately, realized, hey, hang on, you know, we can do that. We can do that, you know.
I mean, wonderful. I mean, so many areas touched there, you know, and fantastic. So I think there's going to be a lot of resonating on that. So thank you very much. Oh my goodness, I'm doing really well on my value for wishes. So I'm going to move now to my third. Is wonder if you could share one personal habit which you attribute to your success.
I think it's self-belief despite of. I think that is it. I think that anyone who is fortunate, unfortunate to be artistic, and I say that literally, fortunate, unfortunate, because the fortunate thing is you're artistic, in other words, you see, have different ideas maybe than other people can see, or visual things, or whatever it is, or drama, what, you know, et cetera, writing. The downside, generally with an artistic temperament, is that you're generally not very confident. You're normally slightly insecure, probably because you're always relying on your own resources. And I can't remember what the question was now, but can I have a fourth? You can have a fourth wish.
I'll bag that one as a free one. That, you know, as I said, I'm now really so what was one personal habit you could attribute?
Oh, that's right. Yes. So so it's basically just that it's having enough self-belief despite that the sort of your lack of confidence, stroke image of yourself and all that, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, because ultimately it doesn't matter how many times Auntie Lil says, you know, you're the most wonderful thing since sliced bread, it's still got to be you that believes it to some degree or the other. And what I'm saying, I suppose, is that as long as it's enough to get you one step, you know, that's all you need.
I love it. It's you know, great down to earth advice that, you know, and that's actually, that's what you need. You don't need all this, you know, it's not complicated. It's actually, and so well, look, sorry,
you've got all I was going to add in that is that you obviously have to be grounded, you know, and I think that even, you know, John Lennon and all these greats had their heroes. You know what I mean? So it was rather interesting, apparently, that when after John Lennon was tragically killed, his sort of collection of records was mainly from the 50s, because they're the people he really, really admired. And so even in his sort of back catalogue, he thought, well, I still didn't write Heartbreak Hotel. You know what I mean? Or whatever he was. So I think, you know, everyone has to be grounded in and having their own sort of heroes and stuff. But but it's just that enough confidence, self-confidence to keep going.
I love that, because yes, I never thought that, you know, who we admire had somebody there.
So, of course,
that's a really interesting concept. So thank you for leaving me my getting in my brain. So look, where can we get hold of you, Steve? Because, you know, this you set yourself out so really well. So where can we get?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I've got a website basically, so that's the best way to get hold of me, I think, and it's stevenewmanvoiceover.com.
Awesome.
So Steve Newman, voiceover.com.
And I found you on LinkedIn, so I know you're on.
Yes, on LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
So I know you're active on that platform. So,
yes.
Well, look, thank you very much. I mean, the takeaways I've got from that, how first of all, there's a whole different world which you can't see behind all this, the glamour at the front there.
Yes.
Which is really, I kind of felt like I had a peek behind the curtain. And, you know, very down to earth, and realizing when you needed effectively to move on to something else and reconnect with something else, you know. So I think, and the quote and the poem which you read out is just fantastic. So,
Good. Thank you so much. That's lovely.
So, I say a big thank you to today's Genie. And if you've been inspired and moved by Steve, reach out to him. He can help you with anything on the voice front. So once again, thank you.
It's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
And the listeners and viewers, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time for another Genie guest. Thank you very much.
Well, that's a wrap. You have been listening to yet another episode of the Release the Genie podcast with host Paul Rogers. Be sure to follow Paul on the LinkedIn platform and learn more of Paul's resources at www.takeactionacademy.ca. And until next time, as always, be mindful and be sure to release your Genie. Thanks for listening.